gosh, I'm so grateful to be here today. There's so much to get through, but before I do, I would love to just harness this collective energy right now and ask us all to take a couple deep breaths together, okay? So empty your lungs and breathe in. Exhale. Do it again. Breathe in through your feet. Exhale through your heart. One more time. Breathe in through your heart. Exhale back out. Thank you. Need the clicker. I decided to title my talk today, Root Down to Rise Up, because when I think about the concept of a blossom, it makes me think about all the other stages of the life cycle that have to happen first in order for a blossom to happen, including the clearing, the death, the darkness, and the incubation periods, before we maybe get to that sprout, that growth, and if we're lucky, a blossom. This phrase comes from my very first yoga teacher, Elsie, 15 years ago, who would always say this during practice to remind us just how much integrity we need to put into our foundation in order to be able to rise up with greater stability, trust, and ease. And so, in order for us to really get on the same page, I'm gonna ask us to do a quick little experiment because I think there's no better way to understand an abstract concept than by feeling it in your body. So if you will, please stand up and don't hold anything, put it all down. Plant your feet on the floor, okay? And just kind of stand as you would stand. Okay, take a minute, arrive in your body. Hey body, just check in. Just see how you're feeling, okay? And now, bring all your energy into the soles of your feet, okay? And just gently start to kind of push down through the balls of your feet, the center of your heel. And as you gently press through the floor, notice what happens to your spine. Notice what happens to the back of your neck, maybe your shoulders. Inhale, root down through the feet. And exhale, see if the crown of your head can just get a millimeter taller. Do it one more time. Press down firmly through your base. And see if you can just get a little bit more length. Cool. Let's sit down. Thank you. Nature teaches us that we need cycles of clearing and rest in order to create space and generate energy for new growth. And as myself, a lifelong yogi and student of Ayurveda, I have really come to shift my perception of death as solely an ending of something, but rather the beginning of something else. I've also lived through enough dark times in my life at this point to now recognize with hindsight that my darkest seasons have in fact been the beginning of my brightest blooms. And what's amazing about the timing of this speech is that today, currently in my life, I'm actually in a wild state of blossom, for real. And as recently as less than 2 years ago, I was in a very dark night of the soul. And so today I want to tell you the story of what happened, how I got here today, and share with you how I found myself in a state of aligned abundance and ease like I never have before. Before we dive in, every now and then today, I might invoke a little bit of call and response just to keep you awake and interested. Okay, so let's practice. If I say creative, you say mornings. Creative.
Mornings.
Creative.
Mornings.
You got it. Okay, so let's flash back and set this story up. We got to go back in time. Yeah, to 2020. Yeah. So just before COVID, my life looked pretty good on the outside. I was engaged, I had just adopted my dream dog, I was working for myself, and I was doing the work of my soul. I was a social justice teaching artist. I was facilitating theater of the oppressed and using theater to teach social emotional skills and disrupt the school to prison pipeline. After 10 years working in the traditional entertainment industry, in the theater as an actor, a director, I was jaded, burned out, and bored. And I had finally found the work of my soul and the people I would go through hell with doing it. I was also a yoga teacher. I was teaching yoga and meditation for group classes, private clients. I was training teachers. I was co-managing a studio, and I had started my own corporate health and wellness business. I was hustling, but I was doing the work that I loved. And yet, something was off. I felt like I should be happier than I actually was. And I was stressed all the time. So when COVID hit, it was like the fire that wiped everything out overnight. All of my homes were gone. Theater, live entertainment, gone. Yoga studios, gone. Teaching in schools, detention centers, gone. Even my backup, the restaurant industry, gone. So I was forced to pause long enough on my hamster wheel to really slow down, get off, and assess in my life what was and wasn't working. And when I really got real with myself, there was a lot not working, personally and professionally. It was as if I was slamming the gas pedal to the floor as hard as I could, spinning my wheels, going nowhere, and just burning gas. So then one day, it all came crashing down in the form of a panic attack. When I say panic, you say attack. Panic. Attack. Yeah. I can still remember the sensation of my brain going dark. It was like watching a pinhole of light just shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink until it was black. I watched my creativity, my organization, any sense of practical thinking go offline. Until all that was left was this exposed nerve curled into a ball, trying not to die. Eventually, I regulated, and I realized I couldn't just keep going with the way things were. It was time to take that plant out of the pot, shake off all the old dirt, and really get to the root of the issue. Pun very much intended. Yeah. So I did my trusty root cause analysis, and I got to find the underlying cause of my stress. Any guesses what it was? What's that now? Stress? Fear? Overwhelm? Money. It was money. Or rather, how little I had been prioritizing money. So here's the thing. I never really thought or cared about making money. I was driven by purpose and mission and the impact, the work of my art. Or so I thought, until I realized that actually I was obsessed with money. I thought about it all the time. I tracked every penny coming in and out of my life for years and years because I made so little. I had to be so careful. I've never known, in my 25 years of working, I've literally never known how much money I will make in a given year. And because I never felt like I had enough, it was a constant source of very real stress. And it was finally starting to bleed out over the rest of my life. And so, with this awareness, a few things became very, very clear. Because I did not prioritize a stable financial foundation for myself, the rest of my life was unstable. My life at the time felt like it was growing like an inverted triangle where the top just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and the tiny point on the bottom more and more tenuous every day. I also realized that I wanted to relieve my art and my yoga practice from the burden of paying my bills. When something so sacred and personal becomes your source of survival, it does something to your relationship. And at the time, I didn't have the right tools to keep myself or my art protected. And for the first time in my working life, I wanted to experience what it would be like to make my money another way so that I could maybe get back to a more pure sense of creative joy. I also realized that I had fallen prey to some pretty serious limiting beliefs and conditioning messages around being an artist and money. Such as, well, you're not in this for the money, and you'll never make any money at this. And if you do make any money at this, you've sold out. I have since learned that a lot of other creatives and artists also carry those limiting beliefs. If you've ever been there, say, been there. Been there. Yeah, that was like the whole room, you guys. And I have also since spent a lot of time challenging the F out of those limiting beliefs. And so, first off, I have to say, says who? Who has told us those things? Number one. And here's what I have to say back. You may not be in it for the money, but that does not mean you don't deserve to earn a proper living, however you want. If you do make money on your art, that does not mean you've sold out, necessarily. You get to decide what that means for you. And lastly, if you choose to make your money another way, that doesn't mean you're not an artist. So just take that in if you've ever been victim to that unhelpful conditioning. Lastly, I realized something else. So I've been studying trauma for about a decade as a facilitator and a teacher. And the foundation of trauma-informed care is creating safety. Because when we don't feel a sense of psychological and emotional safety, our nervous system takes away parts of our brain. It shuts down our higher functioning, like my panic attack. And so when we don't feel safe, we lose access to the very things that make us creative: curiosity, learning, making choices, taking risk. So all of this boiled down to the fact that I needed to get real about building a more secure financial foundation if I wanted to protect the thing that mattered most to me, my creativity and my art. So by this point, it's like late spring 2020. We are all realizing COVID's not going away anytime soon. So I set out to find a new career. And it went terribly. Until finally, like 6 months later, someone I knew from my community reached out and said, hey, I've actually always thought you'd be really good at what I do. And he worked for New York Life Insurance Company. Yeah, I did everything I could to not laugh in his face. I mean, right, me, this counterculture, self-employed hippie, yogi theater artist inside the belly of the institution. Say, what the what? What the what? And yet, I stayed curious, and I had a conversation, which led to another, which led then to me being heavily recruited by Northwestern Mutual and New York Life, and I'm like, I don't even know if I want to do this, until I got even more curious and investigated what this opportunity was and saw a lot of alignment. I realized that I have one of those fun unicorn brains where I'm equally wildly creative and highly analytical. Shout out to all my other unicorns in here, because I know you're in here, yeah. And I realized that when I went to school to study theater, I needed to leave the overachieving academic behind. And then after 15 years in the arts, I kind of forgot about that side of me. Until I realized, oh wait, maybe this was a place where I could apply both sides of my brain and all the social, emotional, behavioral work I've been doing. I also realized at the core of being a financial planner is being an educator. And at my core, I have always been about providing accessible education to empower people. So that tracked. I saw a path to stay a business owner, which ultimately was what I wanted. And I saw an opportunity to make a real impact in people's lives. So I said to myself, okay, worst thing that could happen is I do it, I learn a lot because I also never got a financial education. And if it doesn't work out, I'll do something else. And so on December 21st, 2020, I said yes to New York life and a very new career. And then 2 days later, my toxic engagement blew up for the last time on a road trip to St. Louis to spend Christmas with his family. The next morning, I left, took the dog, drove 6 hours north to Milwaukee to surprise Christmas my family. And then the next day, I turned the car around to come back to Colorado. In a matter of days, my entire world had collapsed. After 15 years of being a working artist, 6 years of being a yoga and meditation teacher, suddenly I'm selling life insurance, I'm getting securities licenses, I'm surrounded by finance bros, and I'm drinking from a fire hose daily as I'm downing jargon and concepts and strategies and products that were completely foreign to me. Meanwhile, I'm recovering from a highly toxic and abusive relationship, grieving the loss of the man I thought I would marry, the loss of friends, and navigating all the change we all experienced during COVID. I moved into my own place with the dog, maybe $2,000 to my name, and I'm living off commissions. 2021 was the hardest year of my life. If COVID was the fire that destroyed the garden, 2021 was the bleak season after, where we weren't sure what was going to come back and what would live. I felt like my roots had been ripped out of the ground after nurturing that soil my whole life, and then my roots were singed, stripped bare, and then transplanted into a completely unfamiliar garden. But you know what? I spun my own cocoon. I embraced the darkness, and I started digging down to try and start planting my roots. And I made it. Hey, raise your hand if you've ever made it through a tough time. Raise it high. Okay. You know what, you guys? I think that calls for a 30-second dance break. I'm so serious. Stand up. We are gonna boogie with James Brown right now, and we are gonna dance it out for all the times we made it through something. Hopefully this works. It's thinking, we have a backup plan. Oh, here we go. Yeah, baby, let's boogie. Yeah, shake it out. All those times you made it through. Celebrate yourself. Let's go. Get funky with it. Boogie. I know you're all caffeinated. Let's go. Yeah. Let's get it. Enjoy yourselves. Yes. Celebrate yourself. Woo. All right, y'all. If only there were extra time, we would just keep going. Thank you. All right, back to business. Literally. Okay, so James, he's like, I'm not done, baby, I'm back. okay, we'll get there. But anyway, I made it. I survived. While a part of me was weak and grieving the loss of a lot of things, at work, I crushed it. My first year in finance, I made 3 times my past average annual income. Thank you. And get this, I won a bunch of awards. I ended up winning the Colorado Rookie of the Year award for New York Life. This theater kid was floored, y'all. It was wild. But that first year in finance gave me the success, gave me the confidence I needed to really look around and be like, hey, I can adapt and I can maybe grow my roots here. So that then led to me sussing out my sense of alignment. Because while I saw an opportunity, I realized that the container of the insurance industry wasn't quite right for me. So then I found a financial planning firm, a boutique firm in Denver, doing the kind of work that I really wanted to do more of. And they offered me a full-time salary, benefits. Oh, God, those were the days. And an opportunity to take over the firm. All the things I thought I wanted. No, you're good. So then I realized while I felt like I should be growing, I was actually wilting at that firm. It was a very toxic environment. And so while I was plotting my exit, they beat me to it and they let me go a year after they hired me. Back one more, 2 more. Yeah, that's my I survived picture. So they let me go unexpectedly, and the timing couldn't have been worse. It was devastating. It felt like after 2.5 years of nurturing my shriveled and barely surviving roots back to life, and I was just about to sprout that leaf that you saw a minute ago. I had just popped my way up through the soil, about to be like, I'm gonna make it. It felt like I was bulldozed in an instant. It cut me at my knees. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because them letting me go forced me to dig my own plot of land and stop looking around for someone else's garden and embrace my uniqueness in the financial advising space. And so, there it is. That little bud has now grown into my own independent financial advising firm. Something fewer than 900 other women in the country have done. And I did it in my first 3 years in the industry. I realized my creative background is a leverage in this industry. I committed to who I was, and I built my own firm around my vision, my values, and now I am serving who I want to serve in the way that feels good for me and them. I am using the F out of this industry to execute my larger mission, to provide accessible education, to empower people, to make informed choices that feel aligned with who they are. Because if we can diversify who gets access to financial advice, we get to diversify who participates in our markets. And when we diversify who participates in our markets, we shift the balance of power. So, this social justice theater kid is not done yet. But that's not the end of the story. When I say tell us, you say more. Tell us. More. Tell us. More. Okay, I will. So, if you'll remember, the whole reason I switched careers in the first place was to protect my creativity. So once I got through the multiple transplants and rerouting, And once the business was finally starting to grow legs, I really wanted to get back to my art. And I couldn't. I was so stuck. I wanted to sit down at the piano, pick up my ukulele. No go. I had a friend send me writing prompts. Couldn't do them. I realized that without the external pressure of the next show, the next audition, the next performance, I didn't know where my source was. And while I recognized I had this block, I didn't know how to get out of it. If you've ever been there, say been there. Yeah. And then came Sherilyn. I met Sherilyn about 18 months ago through a mutual friend, and we had a lot in common. We both used to be professional performers, and we were now entrepreneurs, and we were both really struggling to access our creative play. So we decided to become creative accountability buddies. We set micro goals for ourselves, and I mean tiny. And then we committed to checking in once a week over WhatsApp. She's in the UK. And so when I say micro goals, y'all, they were small. My first goals were to play the piano for 10 minutes a day, as many days as I could, and do one proper vocal warm-up a week. And in the beginning, it was really hard. There were plenty of weeks where neither of us did anything. But this is key. We stayed committed to checking in, and we stayed committed to zero judgment, zero shame. And those weeks where we didn't do any of our goals, but we stayed in our rhythm of checking in, those were actually the most powerful weeks because it gave us a safe space to process and reflect and be like, you know what though? I can find 10 minutes somewhere in the course of a week to sit down. It's not about the masterpiece. It's just about doing it. This has led me to really look at my creativity in two different camps: discipline versus flow. Our creativity is a muscle, and we need to treat it as such. My creative muscle was burned out many times over and then fell into a state of dormancy. And so I needed to get real about where I was at and then meet myself there with radical compassion. So, little by little, Sherilyn and I would keep checking in, we'd meet on Zoom every now and then, reset our goals, and we would allow our natural inclination and curiosity nudge us forward to take the next tiny step. And we gave ourselves permission to release any expectation of outcome. We literally had no idea where we were going, and we wholeheartedly committed to process and joy. We gave ourselves the space that we needed to grow at the pace we needed to grow. This is hard to see, I'll read it, but this is a page from Ram Dass's book, Be Here Now. Shout out Ram Dass. Yeah. And it says, you can't rip the skin off the snake. The snake must molt the skin. That's the rate it happens. And so we gave ourselves that grace. And little by little, we grew. Suddenly, I'm noticing the days where I don't play piano more than the days that I do. My voice is opening up, my technique is more readily available, I'm expanding my rep, I'm organizing my music, I'm telling anyone who will listen that I want to front a jazz fusion band. I am still looking for collaborators. And then, this last spring, someone reached out to me and invited me to join a hand-selected group for vocal improv. This group checked every box that I had been pining for with Sherilyn for months. See, because when we gave ourselves that space, it gave us room to get really clear on what we actually wanted. I had been telling her, I want to make music with others. I'm tired of playing by myself. I want to focus on my voice. I want to work on more jazz and original composition work. I want to stretch and keep learning. And this group literally checked every box. And not only that, but I make music with this incredible small group of humans once a week, and it has become my fertilizer. It truly regenerates my energy. I leave feeling more awake. My eyes are literally brighter when I walk out at the end of the session. And so, think for yourself, what is your fertilizer? What are the things that actually give you energy instead of deplete you? I kept going. I also, this last spring, ended up doing my first traditional theater audition in 10 years. And I got a call back. And I got an offer for a major role in a musical. Which I actually turned down because I could tell it didn't feel all the way aligned. And if I didn't have that space, I don't think I would have been able to recognize that. I'm gonna say a hot take. Are you ready? Yeah. Say ready. Ready. Now I believe you. Taking a break from my art was the best thing I did for my art. If you need permission to set something down, here it is. Because, like I said, with that space, it gave me time to get clear on what I wanted and what I didn't. It helped me better attune to my own inner guidance system, my voice, what and how I really wanted to create. Distance does make the heart grow fonder. I needed time to miss the thing that I started to hate. And now I have more clarity than ever on what I truly appreciate about my art and my own creative process. Little by little, things kept expanding. I'm standing on this stage right now, something that I've been wanting to do for years. Next week, I'm flying to Chicago to be a lead performer in a cabaret. I'm in more conversations with more local collaborators on new projects and works. Even when Brandy and I talked a few months ago, this was not happening in my life. It all just started coming up. I can't leave this stage without talking about one last really awesome blossom, yeah, in my life right now. So, actually, what's really cool is that last December, from this very stage, I gave a 30-second pitch as I launched my community, The Creative Experiment. Yes! This is a community for creative peers to connect, engage in dialogue about the nuance of being a creative professional and the nuance of creativity itself, and to share resources, inspiration, keep the joy alive, all the things that I've learned over the last few years. This community, all I did was set out to host 12 monthly meetings over the course of the year. My little list started at 8, and in 9 months has grown to over 110. And for my math nerds out there with me, that's almost 1,300% growth. It has not grown because I've been pushing it. It has not grown because I've been forcing it. It has grown because I've paid attention to my roots, and I have stayed committed to my sense of alignment. And I've left space for it to grow in the way that it wants to. And you know what? It's a lot easier than forcing it. And now, because of the creative experiment, I was invited into someone else's creative space to do something. And so I grabbed the metaphorical bull by the horns and a couple collaborators, and in 6 weeks, we devised and produced an original immersive performance piece just less than 2 weeks ago. It was my first public showing of original art in 10 years. Thanks, you guys. And it happened because I was focused on my roots. Yes, I am in a season of blossom right now. And it's amazing. And it will fade. Nature and its rhythms and its cycles are one of the most reliable sources of guidance we have. We are nature. We too have our cycles and our rhythms. What would happen if you allowed yourself to move with your own cycles and rhythms? What would happen if you embraced each phase of the cycle for what it is? Even the times where we have to let go, even the times where it's dark and we don't know if we're gonna bloom or when. All of this that has happened for me over the last 6 months did not happen because I sought it out or because I forced it. It happened because I paid attention to my roots. I got real about what I needed. I stopped shaming myself for what I actually needed. And then I put my head down and I focused on what I could control. How I tend my garden, how often I'm watering, what kind of sunlight I'm getting. And so I encourage you to think about all these phases of your own creative life cycle. There is gold to be mined in each. They each serve a purpose. Each step of the cycle leads to the next. Can we trust ourselves? And can we trust the process enough to lean into each cycle for what it is and trust it will move at the pace it needs to move? So I encourage you to celebrate your blossoms when they happen. They're beautiful and precious and inherently impermanent. So savor them while they last and root down so that you can keep rising again and again and again. I could talk about this all day, but we don't have time for that. So if you want to connect, I'd love to keep the conversation going. Here's a couple ways. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm so grateful for your presence.